He's on fire! Do a barrel roll.
Wow, incredible!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in with us for another episode of the RetroAchievements Podcast, where we cover a variety of genres, topics, and discuss the bits and bytes of yesteryear. Today we're sitting down with a developer we've all most likely come to know either through Discord, their sets, or their win for Dev of the Year on a segment I'm calling The Magic of the Mystic. From those Jalico curses on the classic NES to nearly the entire Ultima catalog scattered over several consoles, and even modern offerings such as Dragon Quest VIII. This dev brings a heavily RPG-flavored but genre-diverse offering to the table. With such a variety and eclectic track record, however, sitting down with the chef himself to see how the meal is made couldn't be more insightful. For exactly that reason, I have my guest here today, TheMysticalOne, to dive in on their method to their madness as it relates to set creation, game choice, and what, in their opinion, makes a good achievement. We also cover games we've been playing lately and sets of note that are caught our eye in the community. Mystical, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Something we've been wanting to have in the works for a little bit now. Scheduling just got the better of us, but either way, better late than never. Like I alluded to in the intro there, you took home Dev of the Year. Decent award there to be nominated and win. Any initial thoughts on that, just out of the gate?
I still don't know how to react to it.
It is definitely one of those things that you get a little bit overwhelmed when you become kind of the center of attention like that without really planning on it. Did you have any idea you're really in the running for such a thing?
I had some people thinking I might. I thought someone like Snow might take it because I looked at stuff that he had developed, and he has a heck of a catalog this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a nice surprise. I like winning things, so that's always fun. But I'm also terrible at taking compliments, so...
No, I think that speaks for a good chunk of the community here at RA. We would definitely love to be in the spotlight, but as soon as we are, it's what do I do now? Now, that being said, you have been around since November of 2019, so a few years under your belt at this point. Definitely starting to become an old hat. Plenty of the DevQuest awards have been knocked out by yourself. And one of the things I touched on specifically was your ultimate development games. You have a lot of those under your belt, and a lot of those taken care of. What's going on there?
I first kind of found RA because a streamer I watched, Dan Carnett, was playing a lot of RA sets. I think at one point he was top 25 before he kind of went on to do other things. But one of the things I noticed when I was looking at the site after he got into it is that there was no real Ultima sets on it. And I really liked Exodus as a kid, and Quest of the Avatar as well. And I said, well, it feels criminal there's no Exodus set on the site, so maybe I'll try to make one.
Perfect. So you saw your opening and, shot the attack. That being said, it's one of those things that I do want to get into once we get to the meat and potatoes of the segment is just, your actual dev process, how you select a game, and your start to finish. Through the whole, development as it stands. Just to get into the intro, though, let's talk about what it was like for you to become a junior. When you first came on the scene, it was before my time. What did things look like then?
I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think the junior dev program was fairly new at that point.
All right.
And I don't know, it was fun. I would read the channel a bit and kind of get an idea of what to do. I do wish I had asked more questions right off the bat. Because I remember in my first reviews getting kind of, not scolded, but pointed out, oh, well, you shouldn't use text-based things for these achievements, and this one over here has one condition in it. And, mistakes I would never make now. But a lot of the common junior mistakes I made right off the bat. I still think I made a pretty decent first set. And everybody was pretty friendly. So that was one thing I noted right off.
That Ultimate Exodus ended up being your first set?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and did it take you a handful before you were promoted, or where did that lie?
So I did that set. And then it was funny. I remember, I was like, oh, I'll play through my own set, make sure everything really does work. And I tested it a fair bit. And then someone else hopped on, right away. And within, 35 minutes, they had beaten the game. And I was like, well, that's an odd collection of achievements. And then I realized, oh, they're a speedrunner of the game, because I realized the exact order of things they got was following the speedrun. I found that kind of funny. But yeah, then after that, I'm like, well, Ultima Quest of the Avatar, the next game, doesn't have a set on the NES. So I just dove into that. And that's what I ended up graduating off of.
Gotcha. Started working your way down that list, grabbed one more Ultima, and that got you the win.
Yeah, it was funny, too, because I think, I want to say it was Sporytyke that at least presented the results of the review to me and said, well, with a set like this, it's good enough. Why don't you promote it?
Very nice. I mean, that's a pretty good compliment then. Now, that is not the first time I've heard of a speedrunner coming through and kind of throwing up a yellow flag on the developer's set. A couple other people have, just in the community, you've seen it floating around where they'll say, hey, someone's cheating. This is blatantly cheating. Oh, God, everybody look at it. Wait. They're a world record holder. And it's a little bit of almost like a slice of humble pie, and you're also flattered. You know, on one hand, you put a lot of work into deving the game and getting the set going, and something of that nature. So you don't want it, being cheated. So just to see somebody come in that has such a love for the game in a speedrun fashion, sit down and give it attention, that's got to be such whiplash from, oh no, somebody is abusing this too. Oh, this is fantastic. Am I accurate, or?
Yeah, a little. And I also hope that I was sort of familiar with the generalities of the speedrun, because I had watched plenty in the past. I was just really happy that nothing broke on them.
Yeah, that would have been a time. All right, welcome to my new set, and it's not working. Yeah. Now, that being said, I do want to get into more of the things that you made, but we're just going to kind of wrap up the intro for this. RetroAchievements Podcast at gmail.com if you guys want to reach out. We do also have a message from BahamutVoid planned at some point in this episode concerning the event they've kicked off, so look forward to that. But otherwise, we'll be back.
Major fracture detected.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We do have a guest here, BahamutVoid. Wanted to bring him on. He kicked off a new event recently, getting a ton of attention in the Discord. Bahama, how you doing? First time on here. Glad to have you. Give us the rundown. What's going on?
So, yeah, pretty excited to be here. So, new event, Console Wars. 3 consoles show up a week, and all you have to do is play whichever one you want, get enough points in them.
Yeah, it seems pretty well put together in a sense of ease of access. A lot of people just are participating, jumping in, and almost having it just that baseline level of, hey, pick the console that appeals to you. You've got a lot of people participating in that. Did this come from anywhere specifically, or something you formulated yourself?
So, this is my second event. Last year I ran Challenge League, which within that had an event called Grand Tour, where you had to complete a game for every console. And
all right,
that had some strong feedback. That was well received. It was just, you had to complete a game for each console. It was a high bar to have.
Absolutely.
So I just sat and thought, well, people like this, but how do I kind of make it more accessible? Which is why the event now is geared to basically appeal to as many people as possible, in the same way that Achievement of the Week kind of does.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's playing into why it's blowing up on the Discord so much. You see that channel being very active.
Oh yeah,
and it's getting good feedback.
I'm still kind of in shock. It's been 2 weeks later, and we had 120 users in the forum for the first week. I had no idea that people were going to receive it so well.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like one of those things I call champagne problems. It's a good problem to have. This is suffering from success.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, just on kind of a broader view, you said you had the Challenge League and the Grand Tour last time, but, everybody might not be super familiar with who you are. Could you just give us a rundown on how you relate to RA?
Oh, yeah, sure. I've been on the site for about 6 years. Been really active for the last 3. When I joined the server, I saw Achievement of the Week, and I haven't really stopped playing in events that entire time. So I'm waiting for my burnout to show up eventually.
They say it's going to come, but hey, as long as it's not here yet, keep going. More events.
About half a year later, the admin team invited me on as a moderator. I still am, somehow. Half a year after that, I graduated junior dev, so I develop now.
Right on. All right. I do see your name pop up in a lot of sets that come out, RPG flavored mostly, correct?
Brain's going blank. Later set I did was Resident Evil.
Oh, yes.
That felt like an RPG. There was a lot of marking down of every little item, stuff like that.
Yeah, I imagine the RAM digging was intense on that, I'm sure.
That was a big set. I recently fixed it up yesterday, actually. Added Spanish, French support for it, so that's fun.
All right, get some more eyes on it. Now, you've been around for quite some time, 6 years pretty much on the scene. What do you have, I know this event's still early, but what do you have in the sights for the future? Do you have anything broad strokes or hopes or things you'd want to see accomplished?
Big question.
It is.
Once I've gotten a few more sets under my belt, I'd like to contribute a lot more to the site in a way that there is a lot of ways to contribute nowadays. There's the hashing project. There's we've got stuff like a tier system eventually. There's a lot of things that I like sitting down with a spreadsheet and just hammering out numbers. So I wouldn't mind anything like that.
Sure. I mean, hey, and if you can put something like that into a productive capacity, things will get done. That's good to hear, though.
Yeah, we recently had a lot of site work being done by Wes Copeland. He's been fixing up the site, so there's a lot of little mini projects going on, and it's just more about knowing where to direct your energy because there's a lot to do.
Yeah, it does seem like there's a lot of spinning plates right now, but from what I can tell, things are being handled all right.
Yeah.
Don't think it's going to go south.
I mean, as I said, I've only barely been here 3 years, and the site's unrecognizable from what it was 3 years ago. It's amazing with what the community can do.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the community, something that we're getting a lot of this in the event is a bit of competition. Now, naturally, these consoles are going to be fighting against each other.
Right.
Did this come from something where you have a lot of for competition, or is this just flavor and add some fun to it? What's going on there? Do you play competitive games? There's kind of two sides of the event. There's the participation, where all you really have to do is play something, say you've played it in the forum, done. But then there's a lot of that meta side that's really fun, where at the beginning of the week, we have no idea what's actually going to win, or what's going to lose. So our first week, we had SNES, and that had a big lead right out the gate. But Arcade and WonderSwan, they were just neck and neck for the entirety of the week, and then at the end of the week, there was just a lot of engagement and a lot of feedback. And when it actually came out, WonderSwan was second, Arcade was third. And that was... Arcade got dethroned first week. Wow.
Yeah.
That's...
unpredictable.
Absolutely, for WonderSwan of all things. Oh, well, hey, that's how it goes. You got to get in there and you pick your sets. If you wanted Arcade to stay along, you should have played some more Arcade sets, people.
I know. SNES winning isn't really a surprise.
No, that's such a juggernaut. I'm sure we'll see that one near the end. I think that one's going to go the distance.
We had there's a lot of event crossover, so Final Fantasy VI was Achievement of the Month, so there was a lot of...
Perfect timing.
That, but then there were Mario sets, and somebody played Chrono Trigger. It was really nice seeing the variety of things people were playing.
That's also what I'm kind of noticing here, and it's a good thing. I think it's purely coincidental that it's worked out this way, but that's not the only event that seems to bleed over into each other. There's a lot of... I don't want to say crossed paths just because that has some sort of a negative connotation, but there's a lot of interconnected threads between these events.
Oh, yeah.
They all seem to be playing together pretty well. It's nice. I see a lot of people saying, complaining in a happy way, basically saying, I don't have time for all this. There's too much I want to do.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I wanted this event to come out, because it has a lot of event cross compatibility, but it was also kind of low-level commitment. Like, if you didn't want to play a
Yep.
week, yet there's a catch-up mechanic. And if you saw something in this year's Challenge League, or Achievement of the Week, or Daily Distractions, although just missed that, Raw Roulette, something's up, people will jump on that and go, oh, cool, I can do this, and this, and this.
Exactly. Yeah, it just plugs right into the system you've got. It adds just another layer of gamification to it. It's an easy, simple going event that, like you say, the engagement is through the roof, and there's a reason.
I mean, when there's also a slight dev mechanic to it. So sets that were released since the start of the event can earn devs points in the event. So we've had 6 submissions now.
Ooh,
and it's
all right.
And it's a nice little incentive to go, oh, I have this set that I've been working on, and I just need that little bit push to just finish it. And then, because it comes out, everybody will go, oh, what am I playing for Dreamcast this week? And it's just, oh, that just came out.
Exactly. Let's try something fresh. Fantastic. No, I'm interested to see as the weeks go on what other dev offerings come out from that variety. That'll be interesting. Now that being said, what do you think? Just, calling your shot now, pointing to the left field, Babe Ruth, what console's winning this thing?
Near the start, I was worried the event was going to be a bit more of a popularity contest, which it kind of was. SNES did win, but that was because people have a lot of nostalgia. People had a lot of things they wanted to play.
It's a comfort console, absolutely.
This week is Dreamcast N64 Vectrex, and the Vectrex is winning by almost double points.
Disgusting, but okay.
I mean, I genuinely have no idea. I mean,
no.
The easier consoles have a lower point threshold to get because it's representative of the sets we have on the site, but but that's not really indicative of what's actually going to win. Last week, it was almost a 3-way draw. I have no idea. If I had to guess, just based on recent stuff, probably the PS2.
All right. Yeah, I can see that being a reasonable call. I mean, it's one of those things where it all plays together. There's going to be plenty of events around it, plenty of sets being developed for it, just because it's a cultural zeitgeist, and people are going to be hopping to it. Fresh new thing. Yeah, I think you're pretty close with that. As much as I want to see Dreamcast go to the distance, nobody loves that thing. I just have a soft spot for it, I suppose.
Oh, you'd probably get Underdog for that week then.
Yeah, I could probably snipe that up. Grew up and it was one of the families that had that console in the house, so I don't know. It was a fantastic thing.
I knew somebody who had a Dreamcast, but I didn't own one myself, which is a shame.
We were always that, the somebody you knew. Yeah, it was well, no, we got the PS2 like a normal family, but...
Yeah, Sega couldn't win that race.
Oh, God, no. But, hey, they could win something here in this race, this competition.
They could. Like, every console has a shot.
Either way, Void, this is definitely one of the things that I just wanted to have you on, even if it's briefly, just to kind of hop in, talk a little bit, see what's going on with the event. It's getting so much attention, it seemed to do a disservice not to bring it up here as well. Try to drive more eyes to it. I think it's a good time for everybody involved.
I'm not sure. Again, the champagne problem you brought up. I'm not sure how much success.
More traffic you want?
I'm not sure. There's so much traffic. I mean, it's so great seeing everybody in the channel suggesting things for people to play, but it's just, I'm not sure. I'm happy for this, don't get me wrong. I'm just not sure I signed up for it.
Champagne problem. Absolutely. Yep. It's one of those, my plate is full, oh God, they're coming with more.
It's a good problem to have, though.
Absolutely.
I was hoping if this was successful, I could just keep going with seasons of this. So just because something wins this time, something else could win the next time. And I'll do it as long as people are having fun and want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's no reason not to keep it going. It's getting engagement. If people want to keep it going, why not? Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. But one of these days, maybe we have you on for a full episode. I'd like to actually sit down and talk with you at length. But yeah, anything you wanted to wrap up and touch on before we get out of here?
I mean, as long as people are playing on the site and enjoying themselves, I don't really have much want for people. If they want to play the event because it crosses over with their interests, that's something I'm fully in support of. But ultimately, yeah, play games because you're enjoying them and having fun.
Definitely the main thing to keep in mind. All right, well, fantastic, guys. You heard it. Get in there in the Discord channel. Console Wars is going on now. As of time of recording, it is in week 2, wrapping up week 2. But yeah, a lot of fun to come from that. We'll see you around, guys.
Modern action theater. That's a good question.
You must construct additional pylons.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're sitting back down with the Mystical One. Like I said in the intro there, we just wanted to cover a handful of their sets, a bit of their development process, really what brought them into their community, and a full broad perspective, really, and then dial into the details on what they think makes a good set. So, Mystical, let's just kick it off with you, man. We'll start there. What, in your opinion, when you're looking for a game to play, not dev, do you think makes a good set?
I'm looking for a set to play. Well, I don't play a lot of sets.
Really?
Yeah, and it's more because I have so much fun deving that I get done deving and then I go, oh, well, what can I do next? And sometimes it feels like playing a set kind of interrupts my time. Though I'm changing that a little bit lately. I don't know. Anything that I find fun, I'll play.
All right. I mean, that's very fair. That's kind of how I pick and choose them. There isn't really a method to the madness when it comes to that. It's just, hey, this looks entertaining. So that being said, since you aren't that much of a player, let's pivot to the development side. If you're trying to scope out a new game, is it just stuff that you had experience with growing up, or a nostalgic factor for, or what do you look for when scoping out a game to develop a set for?
Nostalgia is a pretty big chunk of a lot of things I do. But since getting into some of the dev quests and so forth, sometimes I end up finding something oddball. I had someone suggest a game to me at one point. I say suggest, but I actually gave people a challenge that if they mastered a certain set of mine, that I would dev a game of their choice. And so they picked a Dungeons and Dragons game from the Mega Drive. And I'm like, well, that looks kind of right up to my alley. And yeah, so sometimes things just kind of migrate to me from suggestions, or I don't know, maybe I'm just looking for a development on a certain system, and I go, oh, do they have RPGs? Do they have a shooter that looks interesting?
I did see a couple of things in your catalog that stood out to me as a bit out there, different from the rest. Dungeons and Dragons being one of them. Another one would be the Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest subset. What's going on there? That seems like a bit of a different pick.
That was for DevQuest 13, which is a quest to complete a set that is somehow incomplete enough that we think it needs some attention. And that one only had 5 achievements, so it wasn't even eligible for a mastery badge if you did everything in it. And, I like to watch the Castlevania 2 speedrun sometimes. And I liked that game a lot growing up, so I'm like, well, let me take some of the weird stuff and see how hard I can make it, and do some of the blob glitch, where you kind of boost on a blob up to a ledge you're not supposed to boost up onto. And just some other things that I recognize from the Speedman. I had the opening Lizard Man grind in there.
Perfect. All right, so being familiar with the game seems to be something that is a requirement for you at the very least.
Sometimes.
DevQuest is kind of steering you a little bit there as an overall goal, but you're not to do that Castlevania 2 subset. You're going to have to know the tricks to do it justice.
Yeah, a little bit. It was fun too, because I dug into that one. I'm like, one of them was to basically one-shot death with the dagger, or the golden dagger. Whichever dagger one-shots him. I think you can do it with the holy water too, but I specified the dagger. And I'm like, well, it kind of deals the damage all in one frame, but it kind of doesn't. And I ended up kind of finding a disassembly of it and code noting the entire object table so that I could figure out the animations and different stuff, just so I could figure out some little things for that and for the whipless one, or the only whip. I forget which one I did. I think I have both.
So let's actually dive into that, because it's a good opening to your technique. Able to code out the item table. What are your troubles when dealing with the dev toolkit, or not specifically the toolkit, but let's just say whatever technique you want to use? where do you frequently encounter snags when trying to pin down a unique achievement?
Let's see. Sometimes, well, I mean, finding the memory that governs the thing I'm trying to deal with sometimes can be tricky.
Well, yeah, that RAM digging is always like the biggest. That's the name of the game as a whole, I suppose.
Yeah, and I once told someone in the junior dev chat that don't be afraid to spend 4 weeks trying to find something if that's what it takes.
Wow.
And I joked, but I actually did. I forget what it was. It might have just been something simple like a map ID. If you need a thing, you just keep looking. And I don't always do it in one stretch. Sometimes I'm like, oh, can't find that today. Let me see what else I can find, and then I come back to it.
So it is really a level of persistence.
Because you can burn out if you're just sitting there filtering memory over and over.
You can burn out, you were saying?
Yeah, if you're having trouble finding something, I give it. Sometimes I'll search for an hour or two. I usually don't search for a single thing that long. But if you're searching for something for a while and just not getting anywhere, I usually go and try to find some other thing in the game. So if I'm trying to find battle data for an RPG and nothing's coming up as obviously the right thing, I'll go on and say, oh, let me work on treasure, or let me work on figuring out how conversations work, or some other aspect, and then I'll loop back around to it. Maybe I'll even put it off a day or two and just work on a little prototype logic for something.
Sure. All right. So kind of keeping the options diverse and not to find yourself painted into a corner.
Right.
If you get a little burnt out in one area, try again somewhere else. But also that wraps up with a level of persistence. You don't seem to be setting it down forever, just enough to cool down and come back to it with fresh eyes and fresh head. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I wanted to get into is that sounds like something you do well. What is something, like I said, that you struggle on? I want to see where your pitfalls are. Where is a weakness of yours when it comes to deving?
Where is a weakness? I don't have a lot of experience doing the more complicated finding of pointers. So
all right.
Sometimes your memory just wants to move around, and maybe you find a health value for something, and then next time you go into a stage, it's somewhere completely different. And when it's a single pointer like that, it's not too bad. I found it for some things. I haven't really done chained pointers. So I don't know if it's a weakness yet, because I haven't really encountered a need for it.
I've also heard that those are pretty much a nightmare for nearly anybody.
I have found cases where, though, I'll see something, and just because I know how the RAM map works for that console, I'll go, that looks like a pointer. And I'll just go to the address it points at and kind of see if anything jumps out at me there. And I don't know, probably 90% of the time you find nothing, but a whole bunch of stuff that's probably just graphical related or level layout or something else. But every now and then,
still have that,
you follow that and you go, hey, isn't that...
Wait a minute. Yeah, hey, it can work out. And now that you have the nose for it and what to look for, it's a good thing to check. Like you said, 90% of the time you are just going to get those graphical changes or what have you. But at 10% something, it's worth following through on. Now, I would say one of the bigger games that got you the Dev Award was wrapped up in the PS2 release. No secret, Dragon Quest VIII. Are you a big fan of the series Dragon Quest as a whole? Is this something that you just jumped in on? I do notice on your game wall that is one of the few things that you have played through.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like Dragon Quest a lot as a series. And Dragon Quest VIII, if it's not my favorite Dragon Quest game, it's up there in top 3. But it's probably the one I've played the most. Especially now that I dev'd it, and I probably have played through it about 5 times worth of playtime.
Wow.
While working on that.
Is this a series that you grew up with, or?
Somewhat. I got introduced to Dragon Warrior 3 by a friend, and then because what I usually do when that happened as a kid is I went out and got the previous game. So I played a lot of Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior 2 as a kid.
All right.
And then,
all right.
I basically all the Nintendo ones initially. It took a while to come back to the rest of the series. Really, Dragon Quest 9 got my attention again. And then from there, because there was it wasn't Street Pass, because it was a regular DS, but there was a Street Pass-like thing. And then Nintendo had some promotional stuff. So I got to meet other people who liked Dragon Quest, because I went to some of those so that we could trade maps. And then I started just exploring, backwards through the series. I got the DS 4, 5, and 6, and I found an old copy of 7 for the PS, the PlayStation 1, original PlayStation, and Dragon Quest 8, and I really like it. It's just such a fantastic game.
Oh yeah, I think if you talk to many fans of the series, that would be by far and beyond the highest percentage win for people's vote for the best. Just tangentially, those live events, those meetups, man, before the age where the internet was in everybody's pocket and running just so absolutely fast, those were an absolute treat. The one that sticks out to me, when Pokemon Stadium was coming out before the N64, they were doing teaser get-together and tournaments, and they had them all divided into the cups. It was like I think it was like the Bellsprout Cup, and level gated, that kind of thing. And there were actual badges given away. There were, it was random draw matchup, the theme song just blasting through this giant mall. It was a whole event. I'm just a little kid at the time, so my mind was blown. But going to this, you could two chances, either get the lottery drawn or win the tournament. And that was how you could go play Pokemon Stadium, using your Pokemon. And at the time, that was like, what? Oh my god, my Pokemon? So it was a big fucking deal, but it was, you could go play Pokemon Stadium with some Nintendo representative or whatever at the time. This story doesn't end with some fantastic, resolution where I get to do that. No. Everybody there did get an official regulation Mew, though, and I did get that. Woo. Yeah. Neither here nor there. Just like I'm saying, those in-person events, really something. Was that kind of the same vibe from your guys' get-togethers, or were these like a more grassroots swap meet type thing?
No, I mean, the internet had been out, for a while, since when 9 came out, but the first one I went to, nobody showed up. It was at a GameStop. I did get the map that Nintendo was providing, the Zoma, Zoma. I'm trying to confuse it with Zora's from Legend of Zelda. And then there was one at Best Buy, and that's where, quite a few people showed up. I think there were about 10 of us, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot when you're talking about Dragon Quest.
I mean, it is. I mean, when you run into people, fans of a series that typically you don't encounter anybody who even really knows what it is, it's a big deal.
Yeah, then I went to one at a mall. They were handing out the Malroth map, and I mentioned that Dragon Warrior 2 was really the first one I played through. And so that was pretty cool. They were giving out. And then a group of 4 of us did multiplayer in Dragon Quest 9 and got our picture taken, because we were the first people to actually try out the map at one of these events.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So it was pretty cool time.
Though, I think I lost you there, Mystical. Your connection seems to be waffling just a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of run off potato internet.
Oh man, we feel your pain. But no, it's a shame that you don't see a lot of those events really happen anymore. Like I said, even though they happened for your instance, a Best Buy there with 10 people, it still sounds like it's a fond memory. It was a good thing that happened. It was a fun time.
Yeah.
But kind of back to the topic at hand, though, just your dev work and what you eye in different games. One of the ones that stuck out to me as another, we'll just say, stepchild of the bunch here. Metal Slug Advanced on the GBA. Doesn't seem to stick in the same wheelhouse as the others. What made you pick that one up?
Well, so that was actually a re-author. I ended up doing the ticket for November this past end of year, and I noticed some things wrong with it, and I kind of found some things, and I said, oh, that really belongs in DevQuest, because there's a lot of logic cleanup that needed to be done, and it was a really much more exploitable set than I even realized once I sat down to fix it. I ended up recoding pretty much every achievement, and it didn't look at all the same I shouldn't say it didn't look at all the same, but the core logic that would pop the achievements was mine. And I requested, hey, does this make sense for reauthorship so that I can, basically, if there are tickets on this, they're really my fault. And I wanted to take the responsibility for them. I did really enjoy playing through the game when I was going through cleaning it up and fixing it and adjusting the level clear logic so it was an actual level clear and that they would always trigger and they weren't just, oh, if you load up 100% save, you pop all the achievements.
Gotcha. All right, so no save protection, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was no save protection, and you could just, you could, because you could redo missions, you could end up loading a save and then just dancing all over the place and earning none of the mission achievements even.
Oh, fantastic. No, all right, so that kind of opens up a good door for us, and not to get too controversial here, and we're not stepping on any toes. I generally just want to get, somebody who did take Dev of the Year award home. It seems good to ask you. When do you think a reauthorship is, warranted? When do you think you can step in and say, you know what, I'm sorry, this one's mine?
If you change the core of the logic on most of the set, I think the things you change, you could make an argument that it was not at all working properly before, and the way I had to change it is inherently my logic now. That's kind of when you suggest that maybe it's time. I think if someone has such a very unique concept for achievement, like maybe I don't even have a good example off the top of my hand, but maybe they think of something just super cool and nifty and they work to code it, and maybe it didn't quite work, and by the time you get to fixing it, you change a fair bit. But if it's a very, very unique concept, I think generally you should try to leave those in the original authorship because that's really their creativity at that point. But if it's just like clear the levels, beat the level damage list, collect this collectible, and it was
progression
just something you needed to super overhaul to get it to work consistently and work right, and such that the logic is really your process now and not what it was done before. Now that's when you consider it. I've reauthored a couple things that I ended up cleaning up a lot, but in anything where I have achievements that, well, okay, so I did all these, but these ones over here I barely touched or I didn't touch at all, those ones should just definitely stay on the original author. I don't know, it's one of those things where if there was a better way to maintain a caretaker role, that would be way preferred, I think.
I mean, that's kind of the analogy I was going to make, and I don't know if it really lines up too well, is say you have a city bridge, and the bridge is starting to crumble, but there's still some nice art pieces on that bridge. You'll come through and you'll repave the bridge, bring it back up to code, but you won't tear down the art. You'll make sure that those stay on the new bridge. If there was some unique ideas, they're still going to hang around. You'll do your best to make sure that they're preserved as they were originally intended to. But just bringing things up to standard and up to code so that they function better, that's a decent reauthor-worthy effort. Is that what I'm hearing, or?
Yeah. And I don't go into fixing up a set thinking, oh, I'm going to own this afterwards. It's just when I get to the point where I said, anything left in this that doesn't work is definitely my responsibility. That's when I'll put forth the request. And
yeah, I guess that would make sense too. If you have, it would. I was gonna say it would make sense too if you have altered the logic to the point where the original person wouldn't even be able to address a ticket as it's using your methods.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that would also make sense.
I would also like to see some sort of time frame too. If a dev goes inactive and it's 3 months later and you go through and you overhaul their set, I don't think that should get reauthored. But if it's been 2 years, 3 years,
right,
long ago history, and you go through and you go, well, all of these need to be completely recoded.
Right.
That's a situation that you can consider. But I really would like there to be some sort of caretaker situation later, so that you're not an author now, but you're the one in charge of the set, and all the tickets go to you now, and that would be ideal. But until the site development catches up to that point, this is what we have to work with.
I think that'd be almost a tall order, too. Definitely a noble undertaking for somebody to say, you know what, I'm just going to be the guy that kind of takes these on the chin as the tickets come in. It would be interesting to see how it functions, though. And I definitely think you're onto something, though, that it would be a very valuable part of the site and community.
Yeah. And it's certainly not my idea. This has come up in the past, and I'm sure it'll come up in the future and over again until it happens.
Yeah,
I'm really
either it
hopeful it'll
happens
happen
or it
eventually.
doesn't, right? Yeah. Now, I'm noticing here, kind of back to your game catalog, you have a wide variety of consoles in here. Is that a DevQuest thing? Is that just you jumping around and wanting different flavors? What's going on?
A little of both. There is a DevQuest for doing a set for every single console. Now, there's some caveats to that. Some consoles, because they have a limited library or all the official games have been developed, are just, do an achievement for them now. But
sure.
For the most part, I try to pick off a console every now and then, especially if I see something that interests me.
Yeah, I noticed that N64 is missing out of that list, and I've heard from others that the memory for that is leaving lots to be desired. Is that accurate?
I don't know. I've never actually tried to look at an N64 game beyond a few tickets that I fixed.
Oh, wow, just not your thing.
It's not that it's not my thing. I don't know. I haven't found the game to dev yet.
Hey, I mean, very fair, very fair. Looks like you just have a little bit of experience in Dreamcast with the Smash Pack collab. That was a pretty big thing that dropped last year as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that got your name out there a little bit as well. A ColecoVision pick? What are you doing? What are you doing?
So, I don't know how much if you've talked about the Challenge League 100 that's going on.
Yeah, participating in it.
One of the challenges was to develop a set from a random hub. And I got a James Bond hub. And I'm just looking at the list of games that don't have it. I'm like, well, I don't have a ColecoVision game. I don't know what this game is like.
And so you cursed the community with James Bond on the ColecoVision.
No, I wouldn't say cursed. At first when I played it, I'm like, what is this game? This makes no sense. But then after I kind of started figuring out how to play it, and I wasn't very good at it, but with save states and a little bit of patience, I kind of figured out how it all worked. Wow. And then after a while, maybe it was just some Stockholm Syndrome, but it became kind of fun.
It definitely was Stockholm Syndrome. It wasn't maybe. It definitely was. My dad had a ColecoVision, and I had access to that for a few years. Oh yeah. So it wasn't on the keyboard. It wasn't on a nice, 360 gamepad or whatever you use to play this now. It was on one of those horrible, crinkly, I don't know if you've seen them. It is a 9 keypad controller, so, a big...
Yeah, I have seen them.
Yeah, in the dial at the center. And what used to be like a phone cord for whatever reason, like a coiled up phone cord that is quickly going to become a tangled up, knotty mess. Every time you pull it out, it does not retract the same. And since you got two of them right next to each other, it's going to be a snarl before long. But yeah, he had a pile of those games, and I remember slapping those things in. Turn it on, didn't work. Turn it on, didn't work. Turn it on, didn't work. Turn it on, it works. Okay, we're going to play. This game actually sucks. Turn it off, choose a different one, and do the whole process again. Oh my god. I have the opposite of whatever Stockholm Syndrome is. I see this thing, and I get, like, red vision. It's just angry. What are you doing to us? Mystical. No. But no, I'm sure it's fine. It's just, you had to get your DevQuest. I get it. And the Challenge League. Well, how are you doing in that?
And it I don't know. The game is only kind of loosely James Bond. Each stage is themed after a different movie. If the movie was drive this boat car and shoot diamonds in space and rescue this thing from an underwater lab and explore this shipwreck.
Of course. That's the essence of Bond. But, I mean, let's be real. ColecoVision games aren't about their actual game title. It's about the 7 to 10 colors that you usually see on a ColecoVision. That's what the games are. That's it. It's vibrant, pastel, ugly, jarring. Enjoy. God, that system. At
least it played pretty smoothly. It wasn't jerky or, it wasn't very janky. It was.
I'll give you that. the biggest problem for me was the interface, the controller itself. It was probably just because I was using ancient hardware too, you know. The actual controller in itself had probably seen far better days. So getting it to actually respond properly was just a lesson in frustration.
Of course, I also played with a keyboard.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Having a keyboard to do it helped a lot.
Exactly. It's exactly what I wanted to start this whole thing off with, is I didn't have a keyboard or a nice Xbox gamepad. No. Now, you did mention this kind of was drawn to your attention because you drew it for one of the Challenge League Top 100 events there. How are you doing in that? Are you still chipping away at it? Are you participating? I'm guessing on the dev side.
Yeah, I'm chipping away slowly. I don't know. I've done a few dev things. I can't think of which one's off the top of my head, but if I see something I can use, I dev it. I'm currently working on Final Fantasy II for the PlayStation Portable, because it was on someone's set request list, and that's what they're challenged. Dev a game off of their request list.
Gotcha.
So, if I see something, I'll try to pick it off. I don't have a lot of points. I'm not on the top 10 or top 20 even
Sure.
by any means, but I'm sure by the end I'll earn enough to get at least the 30 challenge badge.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for too, and especially since we can kind of touch on them at any point throughout the year, it really leaves us some time for when we have a moment to sit down and nail them. Now, there is another event going on, that Console Wars. Are you able to find any time for that? I know that's more player-based, but have you spent any time with that?
Because someone's challenge was to earn the gambler role from RA Roulette, I ended up playing the 1 week where he had 3 kind of easier challenges on that. And I created an alt account just so I didn't sully my 100% completion rate on my main account. And I played through those. I was like, this is kind of fun. Maybe I'll try to stick with this. And then Console Wars came out. I'm like, well, let me keep playing. And the SNES was on the first week. And I was like, well, might as well play and beat Super Metroid, because then I can use that for a Challenge League thing, too. So I've been playing a little bit more because of, RA Roulette and Console Wars and Challenge League now, and it's been kind of fun.
Yeah, and I know you had some experience with the Olympics as well, so it's nice to see that you're sampling these events.
No,
you're
not in the Olympics.
To have fun. So one of these games that I'm looking here back on your catalog, and I'm kind of drawn to it. I haven't heard of it until I started looking into this and just to prep for the episode. Section Z, Capcom. Looks like some kind of side-scroller shoot-'em-up. Fast pace. 44 achievements out of this. Talk me through your process on this. It's like I said, more of a run-and-gun, fast-paced kind of game versus your other ones, which are a strategy offering. It's kind of what I was nailing into with Metal Slug until you hit me with that it was a reauthor. Is this similar, or what's going on?
No, this was mine. I actually own the game. I still have the cartridge. I played it a bit as a kid. I was never great at it. It is interesting. One of those games that the further you get into it, the somewhat easier it becomes, because you start having more ammo and you start having more energy, and it becomes harder to die. So once you can get past the initial hurdles, it's actually a pretty neat game to get into. It's a shooter, but at the end of each area, you usually have 1 or 2 gates. And if there's 2 gates, you can kind of choose your direction. And then some gates are blocked, and you have to find a generator to destroy to unlock that. And you just kind of progress through 3 distinct overall areas, so that once you get to a new area and you die, you end up just back at the beginning of the area. So there is some progression that way. But it's kind of like, it's not a Metroidvania, but it kind of has that feel where there's multiple paths, and you kind of loop around a lot. And I actually have some achievements in there. I was like, well, this one area, you can loop through these 3 areas in a tight little loop and power up. And you kind of farm some health, farm some weapon pickups, and kind of get back some strength. So I made some achievements in each area to do that, and try to highlight some ways that you can do that. I have some achievements for finding the quickest path through the areas, and some achievements for trying to explore every single area in one playthrough in each area.
Now, that was, you touched on it lately there. Not quite a Metroidvania. I don't know maybe you have, since you actually have this cartridge and sounds like you had it when you were younger. Have you seen any of the art for this game?
Beyond what's on the box cover, not really.
All right, no worries. So I'm going to send you something here real quick. It's just something you would be surprised how on the money you were. This is it definitely screams a mix of Metroid and Mega Man. It's some kind of crossbreed, and being that it's Capcom, I can see the Mega Man influence for sure. But that
wow.
Yeah, right. That kind of faded art style, that is straight out of the regular NES Metroid era. The suit and everything.
That looks like the guy who drew the Mega Man covers tried to draw a Metroid cover.
Exactly. And everybody needs a gun, so give him a gun.
Yeah, give him a rifle.
Exactly. Oh, that's
the
perfect.
Spaceman flying through space, let's give him a rifle. Perfect.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
All right, everyone, we're back with Mystical again. Just kind of taking a look at RA from a broader perspective. With the last couple of episodes, we were looking at certain teams. We did a little bit on the art team with Galawiz. Before that, we did a little bit on the events team with Bendy. Mystical, I know that you are sitting on a couple of teams here yourself. You mentioned earlier that you were on DevQuest. What are some other roles that you hold here?
I am also a code reviewer now, so I like to help juniors. And before I was a code reviewer, I used to, sometimes if I saw a junior ask a question and nobody answered them for a long time, I'd just drop into their DMs and be like, "Psst, hey, why don't you try something like this out?"
I mean, I'm sure that's probably one of the best unsolicited DMs we could ever get in the inbox. So yeah, I doubt they were complaining. Yeah. So you already had a knack for wanting to help people out on there. You got on the code reviewer. Give us kind of a start to finish process on how that works. I actually myself just for my own curiosity's sake and wanting to help out a little bit more, hopped on the playtesting team, and I just recently found out that at the end of what we do, we pass it to you guys. So give us kind of a broad perspective on just the start to finish process there.
Well, mostly it's kind of helping guide people through the process. I try to encourage people to ask questions. I know sometimes I'll just kind of generally pipe in saying, make sure to ask a lot of questions, and I'll be like, make sure you know how to use Delta and know how to RAM dig, and don't use this thing unnecessarily.
How about this? Let's try it. Let's try it this way. Let's say I just developed a game. Mm-hmm. I just had communication that it went through playtesting just fine. They said it was ready to be passed along to code review. Now, do I wait for somebody to contact me? Do I reach out to the code review team? What do I do as this hypothetical developer? So
when you finish your set, we have a junior dev forum now that they'll create a new entry in with the ready for review tag.
Oh, I lost you there. Hold on.
You're still here?
All right.
Back?
Yep.
All right.
Just go ahead. Yep, we're good.
So we have a junior dev forum now. And so when you're done the set, the junior dev will create a new post in that with the ready to review tag. And then one of us will come along and we have a whole proficiency review sheet that we add them to. And then we also add them to the playtest sheet at the same time. Hopefully, we remember. We're usually pretty good now at making sure they get there. Every now I'll go through and I'll see a few go, "Oh, we missed those," and I'll add them. But and then
gotcha.
Once it at some point a developer or on the code review team will pick that up for a review. They'll look through all the logic, try to find some things that are not in best practices, or things that look like errors, or code notes that could be cleaned up, or things that aren't clear, and kind of make note of them. And they'll write up a little review, ask some questions, make some suggestions, and
all right.
Depending on the state of the logic, it'll be longer or shorter.
All right. Now let's say I, just for sake of entertainment, really, let's say my set was just absolute garbage, and I came to you with a million and ifs, or just horrible spaghetti code. But I was smiley and happy, and I came to you and I'm like, I'm ready for the game to be published, coach. How would you kind of interact with me?
Well, I usually try to be kind off the bat, because you don't want to discourage someone. This is something that they're usually taking some amount of pride in. So usually I'll start off with just kind of an overall set design kind of thing. I used to have set design as my review thing at the end. I've been starting to put it first, because usually you can look at something and say, oh, well, you're doing a Sonic game and you have speedrun achievements. That's good. Sonic goes fast. And stuff like that.
Yep, all right. Yep, we're starting soft. Yep.
Where their general end goal looks good. And then RAM digging is such an important part. If you can't dig through memory and note it well, you're going to have trouble. So I usually try to be like, here's how your notes look. You're noting sizes, or you're not noting your sizes. You're adding specific values. Like if you use, I don't even know, here's something ID, an ID of something, and you don't note any of the values of what the IDs actually are, that's going to be really hard to troubleshoot. So I'm trying to find some things like that that they can be like, oh, why don't you clarify this with these kind of things? And I try to highlight what's done well too. Even a set that looks kind of messy, I can't say I've ever seen one that's irredeemable or that is so bad that I just want to say throw it all out. No, someone always has. Good. Someone always has a basic idea that could work. A lot of times, especially if people look at old sets where the toolkit was a lot less versatile, they might be copying old devs, what would be bad habits now, but might be just what they had to do back then. So we'll see a lot of that. Sure. We'll see a lot of unneeded resets in there because that's what old devs did. Sometimes they had to do it that way. Stuff like that. So I kind of be like, okay, this and this and this, we should turn it around to this because this is what's going to make your logic good. And I'll just kind of just work through all the steps until it's massaged in something that looks right. I've had a couple where someone just really wanted all those resets in there and they had no stored hits, and maybe people don't understand what I'm talking about right now. But I'll go through and I'll just be like, okay, let's change this to this, let's change this to this. This is why we're changing it to this. And so forth, until at some point they're going to get through the set and maybe they go, oh my gosh, that was rough. But then they're going to make their next set and the next reviewer is going to pick it up and they're going to go, yeah, that looks good. And it's because I don't want TMO yelling at me to not have these resets or whatever it is that I focused on heavily. But I do, when I see something, it's like, ooh, I like that design, or ooh, I like how you implemented this. I try to find as many of those as possible to point out. Because usually someone has a good idea.
That's what I was going to say, is like, even though you kind of ended that with a little bit of a joke, we don't want TMO yelling at us again. It seems like the first thing you did was, even if I set the scenario with, I brought you a pile of garbage, and the first thing you did was, let's try to find the kindness. Let's try to find the redeeming here. And you even mentioned that a lot of people get into this probably going to have a little bit of, pride into what they built. And you're right. I don't think anybody gets involved in this with bad intentions. I don't think anybody wants to set out to spend their time learning how to do this, getting the system set up, actually digging through the RAM to the best of their ability and putting something together, again, to the best of their ability, because they're looking at it nefariously. They're not wanting to make a bad product. So I think having somebody on the code review team like yourself who knows going into it, hey, let's try to keep that in mind and let's try to find the kindness here. That's very valuable. And it's good to know that it's out there. I would agree that it's very important to keep in mind. That being said, you were also on another team besides DevQuest and CR. What was that?
I'm on the developer compliance team.
Now, I don't really have much of an idea how that functions. Could you give us a brief overview on what your role is there?
A lot of our job is to make sure that rules are understandable, and that they're done so that sets and developer practices and just how things work and how things are followed for the health of the site kind of work. And maybe that's I'm trying to put it in a way that's accurate.
Hit me with some layman terms. Just hit me with some rough, quick and dirty. We're DMs. We're rule lawyers. What goes on here? Well, how does it work?
DMs and rule warriors is not a bad analogy. It limps a little, like all analogies, but it's not too bad.
Right.
Sometimes people will come to us and be like, "Hey, is this thing in this set an unwelcome concept?" Or similar kinds of things like that. Sometimes someone will message the QA team saying, "Hey, I think this set is broken," and QA will review it and go, "Yeah, that's problematic," and then they'll refer it to us to be like, "Hey, is this broken in a way where we need to demote the set until it can be repaired?" Sometimes we'll get queries where we say, "Hey, this developer doesn't seem to be following the dev COC, the code of conduct, properly. Can you look into this?" And we'll do that sort of thing too.
All right, so it's almost like it has a negative connotation, so I hesitate to say it, but it is almost like an HR of sorts. And again, that has a negative connotation, and nobody wants to be labeled that. So please don't think that I'm insinuating anything negative. But yeah, like you said, all analogies kind of limp along. But all right, yeah, just trying to get a better perspective of it.
And we'll do things like if someone has a subset idea that isn't one of the basic pre-approved ones, like a bonus set or a multiplayer set or a Professor Oak challenge. They'll message us and say, "Hey, is this can you approve this for me? Is this a concept that is acceptable as a subset?" So right now it seems like a third of messages we get deal with that.
Yeah, no, I know subsets are a huge topic right now. In the ever mystical and the white whale that we're all hunting, I'm sure, the subset alongside core build.
Yes.
Oh my God, as soon as that
bad.
comes along. I think we all do, man. As soon as that comes along, all these discussions just tank, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's fine. We've got this. But yeah, either way, so you've got you wear many hats, we'll just say.
Yeah, sometimes
you're on a decent amount of teams. Yeah, it does the plate gets a little bit full. I would agree with you from time to time, and I don't have nearly as many hats. Just between the news team and this podcast, and now, like I said, I just hopped on playtesters. It already feels like sometimes, I got to make sure that I take time for me.
I'm kind of at the point
you
where
got to do the same.
If someone asks me to be on another team, I'm going to have to be like, "No, I can't do that." Though speaking of subset alongside core, sometimes I think, man, I might have to learn how the site stuff works on the RA web and the RA integration and Archivos and stuff to help with that. But I don't know if I really have the time.
Oh my God. It is one of those things where you get it inside of and you're like, fine, I'll do it myself. Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear. Oh, man. Now, that being said, Mystical, fantastic. I'm glad you came on. It's one, like I said in the beginning, something we've been working towards for a minute. It's just scheduling was hell. Before we wrap it up, is there anything you wanted to touch on with the community? Anything you wanted to say? Anything you wanted to comment on? Your thoughts about where we're going? The podcast thoughts, set development. Chair is yours, my friend.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. It seems like every time I turn around, more and more sets keep getting developed. Like this month will have more than the previous month, or it just seems to be growing, and I love the growth. And I like the sets that are coming out. People are getting really creative now. The toolkit is, I'm sure more can be done with the toolkit in the future, but right now it's in a better state than when I started. And it's just, it allows for a lot. Even if more could be allowed in the future, I think creativity is at a high. I think we're all getting into good practices with development, so that there's a lot of quality sets coming around. I see a lot of juniors coming up that are asking questions and making good sets, and even people who are starting slower, they're having good ideas. There's no junior out there that I look at and go, "Oh, they're hopeless." No, everybody, if they stick with it, they're going to be able to make some great sets in the future, and that really makes me happy.
That's awesome to hear. A solid promise for the future and what we have to come. I couldn't be happier to hear it as well. Just knowing that these last 10 years at RA set a solid foundation, and now the engine's really starting to warm up and get started. I feel the same kind of pace picking up with you as well, And it seems like you said, everywhere you turn, there's something new being developed. There's some new aspect coming out. There's a new event being, built. There's some new part of the community being developed, and it's just it's an exciting time to be a part of it. I 100% agree.
Oh yeah.
Mystic, I hope you're right there I hope you're right there alongside me as it continues to grow.
Oh, I also really like to see that more people are getting involved on the RA website of development. There's a lot of site improvements that have come along in recent years. Nydaxn and West Copeland and a couple others have been really putting forth the little site changes that are really improving things a lot. And I kind of wanted to just point that out real quick right now, because I really appreciate the work they do. And I think that's helping out a lot. Even if they're small things, they're all necessary things.
I think having a web development episode of the podcast would be something I'd like to do. If anybody who's involved with that feels like reaching out or getting involved and wants to come on, I'd love to have you. But other than that, guys, Mystical, glad to have you on. Everybody, thanks for listening. This has been another episode of the Retro Achievements Podcast. Feel free to write in retroachievementspodcast@gmail.com, and we will talk to you next time.